Welcome to more Plague Inc. Evolved. As of yesterday, I released my new Mega Brutal Guide for the Xenolith disease type, a brand new disease introduced with the Aliens and Anti-Vaxxers DLC. If you missed that video, I recommend you go back and watch it. Included in that DLC were several more official scenarios, including Zombies vs. Earth, Anti-Vax, Hell on Earth, Herd Immunity, Measles, and Cure Mania. But also, on top of that, we get Leprosy as a free official scenario for everyone, regardless of DLC status. Leprosy still infects around 200,000 new people every year due to social stigma and long incubation periods, but thanks to modern medicine, it's fully treatable. Can you save humanity's oldest disease from long-term decline? I have struggled a lot with this particular disease type. It is quite tricky and does take a lot of luck, but let's see if we can't pull it off today. This should be a great opportunity to revive the official scenarios Mega Brutal Guide series. Now, before I get started, let me go ahead and address some tryhards in the comments who are going to yell at me. I don't really care if I get 3 stars on every single official scenario. Some of them that's easy to do, some it's incredibly difficult, and I do unfortunately have a life. They are not as consistent as the main campaign. So what I'd rather do is put together a strategy that is pretty consistent for the average player, and then you guys are free to optimize as much as you would like. That's my philosophy. Now with Leprosy, for some reason this is listed as a parasite disease type. In the real world, it is a bacterial infection, but that's fine. We'll go with parasite. It actually makes sense for the mechanics we're going to have to play with. And we are going to change up the genetic code just a bit. Sticking with my ATP boost Darwinist and Aquacyte, we're going to swap things out to Rurophile to get a bonus in rural environments, and Pathostasis instead of Symptostasis. My strategy here is going to be focusing on getting lots of mutation-heavy transmissions early. Then we're going to let mutation hopefully carry us to victory on symptoms before the genetic drift gets too expensive, and we'll be able to pick up a bunch of cheaper abilities to carry ourselves to victory. Let's see if it works. Mega Brutal, and here we go. Now, this scenario has some odd quirks to it, one of which being you are always going to start with 3 different nations infected right off the bat. These include Indonesia, Brazil, and the United States. Why the United States? I have no idea, and that concerns me about my home country because it makes me think there might be something going on with our leper population that I don't know about. But either way, you're going to get those 3 for free no matter what. We can start safely. Oh, not in Iraq, in Saudi Arabia. 1 second. Sorry about that. That's embarrassing. There we go. Saudi Arabia, and then we can just go ahead and pop all these buttons. Hopefully we get a lot of DNA. You can get as much as 22. Now for transmissions, we start with armadillos, squirrels, and chimps, which is great. We also have paralysis, skin lesions, and erythema. However you say this, it's basically a rash. Also, we have something here called incubation. This is going to reduce severity, and that way it's basically a version of the parasite special ability. The more we go down this tree, the more we can reduce that severity, and we do start off with kind of too much for Mega Brutal at this level. This is especially important, though, because with this next special ability, we have something called genetic overhaul. Basically, leprosy is a very old disease, and humanity is very close to being properly immune. We have to rework our entire genetic structure to reset their immune system, but this is going to increase our severity a bit too much. The game really wants you to be picking up things like incubation in order to bring it down to a more reasonable level, and we are going to have to do that pretty soon. Now, given that we started in Saudi Arabia, you might think I want to go for some air transmission. I'm not actually going to do that, though. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and start with some rural transmission with livestock, and then we're going to go ahead and grab incubation level 2 right off the bat. Why? Because I have discovered multiple times in this scenario that for some reason within the first week, nations will begin working on some research. Not always. Sometimes they don't, but sometimes a bunch of them do. So this is one way of preventing that from triggering right off the bat. Then we're going to go ahead and pick up the genetic overhaul. The reason you have to have this is if you do not, basically, you are not able to infect people. Barely, anyway. Like, everything seems to be nerfed across the board. I'd have to look under the hood to see exactly how the numbers work, but it's really important we pick this up. Otherwise, your spread rate is just going to be absolutely atrocious. So going back to transmissions, I want to focus a bit on rural. Why? Well, because we do start off with 2 nations that are rural. That's going to be Brazil and Indonesia. The US is considered to be urban, and Saudi Arabia is none of the above. So I'd like to go ahead and grab this, get some of that extra mutation chance going fairly early on. The reason mutation chance is important here is because there are a handful of very cheap little symptoms I'd like to get, but really what I want to do is focus down one path. I want to get up over here. I will tell you why later, but some mutations will determine what is the cheapest path to get there in just a bit. The more mutation chance I have earlier, probably the better chance I'm going to have to get a path that is cheap and effective and still gives me lots of infectivity, but we'll see. Now, if you don't want to go down the incubation route, one thing you could consider doing is going for things like inflammation. These next two symptoms reduce your severity by a lot. But the thing is, I do want to have some severity, a decent amount in fact, because it does get me some extra DNA. So that can be very helpful, and I'd like to have it. We're going to go for the rodent transmission here because that urban transmission type will help, and then I probably want to go ahead and grab birds next for a little bit of land transmission. Afterwards, we can focus on getting, let's say, some water transmission, since again, Indonesia, Brazil, and such, those are considered to be wet nations. This will help me some transmission there. Yes, I know they're not exactly going to be mutation heavy, but we need them to get into places like Greenland anyway, so we'll go ahead and pick some of that up. Again, just trying to kind of nail down my transmissions early before that genetic drift becomes too dang expensive. So this is all taken care of. I'm telling you that this scenario is actually quite rough. Like, I've had a lot of trouble actually getting this one to work. Let's go ahead and work on some cold and drug resistances here pretty soon. I'm not really eager to go for the drug resistance too early. It's more important I go ahead and grab things like some cold resistance, so I'll be able to spread faster in a few places like Russia if we can get there, which we have not yet. Now we can go for things like drug resistance level 1 and for level 2, since we are getting into places like Europe, and that's going to help spread a lot more. We also want to grab genetic hardening kind of early on because, well, you need as much time as you can get in this scenario. They are going to be working on a cure for you fairly aggressively. We might even need to go for a second level of this. Also, in order to get to genetic reshuffle, you have to have one level anyway. That's not really going to be an option for us. Now, beyond that, let's go back to our symptoms. So, not a lot mutated that I was hoping for. I mean, coughing and sneezing are good. Do not get me wrong. These are okay options. I'm going to go for the cheapest path I can think of to get up this direction, though, and that is going to be things like deformations, induration, which is going to slow down the cure, and then we can go for abscesses, which is a fair bit more infectivity as well. This will lead to rapid abscesses, and then finally the step that I'm looking for. This is where things are going to be risky, because we've increased our severity by a lot. Now, weirdly enough, I don't think that I knew this until recently, but severity does actually reduce the cure speed a little bit, which is interesting, and I was not aware of that previously, but yeah, having that can be nice. That said, it's still a little bit too high. I don't want to provoke people to close down their ports. Let's get incubation level 3. This is going to reduce severity a bit more, so it's still below that halfway point. The real test here is, are we going to be able to get into Greenland and the Caribbean and stuff like that? Some of these key islands we've got to be able to get very early on. I could go for that genetic hardening level 2 now, and I'm going to, but then we're going to swap back over to symptoms, and we're going to pick up rapid abscesses. What does this lead to? Our good friend, necrosis. Now, we have to pick this up kind of early on, unfortunately, because if we do not, I find that you pretty much never are going to be able to beat the cure, so we have to take a risk here and pray that we're still going to be able to get into places like Greenland before they shut me down. Getting pneumonia mutated for free certainly does help. It's actually quite expensive for some reason down this far in the tree, like 16 points or more, so that was actually a very nice pickup. I like that. Now, beyond necrosis, there are some nice things here like epidermal failure, increases lethality by a lot, but at this point, I don't think we're going to have enough DNA to make that work. So what I probably want to do is grab something like drug resistance level 3. So we'll do that. Just got a little more expensive. Never mind. What are we missing? The Caribbean and Greenland. Okay, so far they are still open. Got Caribbean. Okay, hoping to see Greenland hit pretty soon. Let's get that drug immunity. That is going to make things like spreading in Russia very fast. Poland and Sweden are still holding out on me, but that's because we haven't spread into their neighbors very much. Please get a boat. Thank God. Okay. So we're looking okay right now. This actually might work. But don't get too excited here, because I have found that this scenario is really weird. Sometimes nations will just, like, let's say, execute their infected, close down their land borders, and then you will never be able to get into that country again. I've had that happen multiple times. I've also found that even if you kill literally 99.9% of the population, sometimes they will still have half of their research active. It's absolutely crazy. I hate it, but that's what we have to work with. I am going to go ahead and pick up something like some heat resistance level 1 and level 2 if we can. Not necessarily because I'm trying to spread faster in Africa, that is helpful, but because the last thing that can really help me is environmental hardening. There's no other transmission types that are going to help me at this point. No other symptoms I have to have, and I'm really relying on mutation chance to give me a bunch of freebies. I'd love to get that epidermal failure here, but environmental hardening would still help me in places like, I don't know, let's say Greenland. That said, at 80-something points, that is Not happening anytime soon here. We are going to fully infect places pretty quickly. Is anything left? Nope, that's it. So at this point, it all comes down to getting as much lethality as possible. We're going to go ahead and grab that epidermal failure since I can afford it. That goes to organ exposure for our last one in this tree, and that is a lot of lethality. If we get it for free, that would be amazing. This has gone incredibly well. I have tried this particular scenario, I want to say, at least 20 times, and it has been a real struggle being able to beat the cure. Sometimes you just get incredibly unlucky with how things work. You get locked out of a country for no obvious reason, and if you don't take the risk with necrosis, you probably will not be able to beat the clock. You have to pray that you're able to get in, even though you have very high severity. Now, at this point, most of the world is dead. We've got a pretty decent amount of DNA. I could try to spend some of it for anything here. We'll just go ahead and grab, let's say, immune suppression to speed things up a little bit. There are some other nice little symptoms down here, but let's be honest. Necrosis and everything that follows, those are the real prize. We're going to end up around 80% cure progress, trying to break it before it gets to 81%. We'll see if that happens. Notice, by the way, 100%. It's rounding up, and we still have like 20, 30-ish. Yeah, about almost 30% cure progress still working. Like, these last people are incredibly good at their jobs. Like, geez, you want to talk about like some underappreciated, you know, the kind of people in college who are working in a group project and they somehow manage to carry them to getting an A every time. It's because of those people. They're the ones who survived at the very, very end. But there we go. Now, despite that being a very, very good attempt, shockingly good, one of the best I've had at 400 days and 82% cure progress, that was still only 2 stars. Which I find incredibly frustrating because I feel like we should have had a pretty solid run there. So, yeah, this is a tough scenario. Prepare to bang your head against the wall. Follow the strategy I'm going for. Go for those transmissions, get the pathostasis, get the key symptoms you need while they're cheap before the genetic drift gets too crazy, and then otherwise just focus on resistances, resistances, resistances. That's kind of all I think you can really do to even stand a chance in this scenario. It's rough. It's a good one, but it is rough. And one of the things that I think is so cool, I know we're just kind of waffling here, but one of the things I think is really cool is that I honestly did not know a lot of stuff about leprosy until I started this scenario. When I think about leprosy, I think of like biblical leprosy. Leper colonies, incredibly contagious. If you touch people, you're going to catch it. No, that is not how it works. It's actually not very contagious at all, and not by touch. So yeah, there's a lot I learned about leprosy just from doing this scenario, which I think was the entire point of it being added into the game and making it free for everybody. A pretty cool addition. Thank you all very much for watching. I know this is a tough one, but try to follow that guide. Don't get too frustrated. It will eventually work, as you just saw. Keep going, and if you can find a way to make this 3 stars, let us know in the comment section down below. I would absolutely love to hear it. Hit that like button if you did enjoy this video and you're looking forward to the rest of the official scenarios. Leave a comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.